wanted to jump on here very quickly to share a couple of tips on how to be a more supportive person, how to be more supportive to people around us when life is hard, when they're going through, hardship or anything bad is happening in their life or around us. And I think this is pretty topical considering everything that's happening around us. So one of the cornerstones of being a supportive person is to have kindness, right? And kindness is basically the act of, showing care and concern for someone who's going through something. And if we take it just one step further, you go from kindness to something called compassion. And compassion is our ability to, put ourselves in other people's shoes and just show sympathy. And then if we take it just that one step further, we get into the empathy domain. And the empathy domain is different from that of compassion in just that it adds one extra element. When you're compassionate towards someone, you are hearing what they're saying, you're listening, you're feeling, you're putting yourself in their shoes, okay? When you talk about empathy, it's about doing those things, but taking it one step further, like responding in a way where you've truly, put yourself in the other person's shoes and are responding in an appropriate fashion. And if I were to give you a very simple example, it's easy to be compassionate when you've been through something. So let's just say you've experienced, I don't know, redundancy, and someone else is going through redundancy. Then it's relatively easy to be compassionate about it. Now, empathy is the ability to feel for the other person, put yourself in their shoes when it's something that you've never experienced, like not even remotely close to a personal experience you've had. So maybe, the person is experiencing isolation and you're able to remember a time when you felt isolation and you extract that and try to apply it just to really connect with where that person is. So that's for, compassion, empathy. So that's what we want to do. We want to be empathetic. And that's one of the cornerstones of being supportive. So how do you show up? Should you even say something when someone is going through a hard time? Like, what if you don't say the right thing? What if it just makes them feel worse, right? Well, let's go through a couple of little pointers on how to make sure you don't go wrong. So let's start with things not to do. So the first thing to avoid when you hear someone is going through something is to get into this place of judgment. So let's just say, something really basic. Someone gets fired, right? Well, you did look a little bit miserable during those, team meetings, or you hear that someone, has a health condition. Didn't they smoke? Oh, yeah, he did eat a lot of junk food. I'm so sorry. So you might say that you're sorry, but you've plugged in a whole bunch of judgment before getting to that point. So that's not really useful. The other thing is to get into this mode where we're a little bit anxious, like we're a little bit stressy, we're like fretting about the other person. So you think you're being a great friend, a great supportive colleague, a very decent human being because you're texting the person and you say, hey, I hope you're okay. And the person doesn't respond and you reply again, you send another message, you leave a voice message, you send an email. I mean, I might be exaggerating, but it happens. I mean, I've experienced it firsthand. And then you're fretting about the other person and it's putting even more pressure on them. So that's not a great way to do it. So what's the alternative? Hey, sending you a text, checking in, hope you're okay. No need to answer this. Let me know if you need me. The other thing is getting into this, saviors mode, like you want to rescue the other person, even though it might not be your intention. You're trying to be helpful, but you're going in there with that intention. So let's just say, someone has just is going through a breakup. Let's just say that. And, your idea of being supportive is just like, you should really try online dating. Like that's super useful. You're young, like go for it. You don't know that. And that's probably not what the person wants to hear from you. If they want to ask you for advice while they're going through a difficult time, they will say so. So just to be sure. And the last thing as well to bear in mind is just, blaming the other person as well for not sharing something with you. So let's just say, I don't know, something bad happened in your life. Maybe I'm not sure. I don't really know. You've had something that you've dealt with, and you don't tell a certain person in your close circle, and then instead of just being like, I'm so sorry, I had no idea this was going on, it will shift from that to, but I thought we were really close. Like, why didn't you tell me? I would have come and helped you. Like, come on. So it sounds like, oh, like you're offended, but you're making it about you. So they've already gone through a difficult time, and then you're making it about you, which is not ideal, right? So what you do instead, if you're in doubt about something, let's just say they've just shared something huge, like someone has a relative who's in intensive care with COVID, for instance, and you haven't experienced that yourself, so it's really hard to imagine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You can never go wrong with I'm sorry. The other thing you can do, as I said earlier in the example of the message, you send a message and you say, no need to answer. I have a friend who does it beautifully, beautifully with every single message. Whenever I'm busy, whenever I have things going on, she always ends her messages with that whenever I say something. The other thing that you can do is also, ask very clearly, like, how can I support you? Can I support you? And the person can take you up on the offer. And then the last thing to do is, think of it as space. So when I say space, it's both about holding space for someone if they need to talk, just uninterrupted, like just a space to vent, to verbalize what they're going through. And then space also about giving them space, giving them the distance. You might be like, oh, but you're in denial. You're not talking about this. You need to talk about it. You'll feel better. That's your opinion. Maybe what that person needs to process their emotions, to move on, to cope, is actually to not address them yet. They're not ready, and that's okay. So just remember, give space, hold the space, but also give space. And then last but not least, I will say that if you are ever in doubt about whether or not you should reach out to someone, a friend, whether they're a close friend or, well, best friend, you probably reach out. But if it's someone that you interact with regularly, if you're ever in doubt about whether or not you should say something, if you know that they're going through a hard time, you're almost always better off saying something than not saying anything. All right, so that's it for my little, power session on how to be more supportive to people going through a hard time, and just, having more empathy. Hope your empathy muscles are warmed up, and I will see you very soon for another one of these.